Hey guys, welcome back to Ripestories. In this r/MaliciousCompliance video, my incompetent manager forced me to obey orders that I knew would nuke the entire team. I tried to stop her, but she would not listen, so I gave her exactly what she wanted. Let's dive right into the video. The first one is titled, "Manager made me fire the most important employees and it backfired spectacularly." Posted on r/MaliciousCompliance. So I work as an administrative assistant at a major sporting goods retailer. Part of my job is to track attendance and regularly upload a report to corporate. My store manager just recently, in the last 2 years, got hired by our district manager who she has been friends with for years. They managed to push out the old store manager who had the store running like a ticking clock. Ever since then, it has become abundantly clear that she has no idea how to run the store, and we have all suffered for it. She constantly screws up the store schedule, bullies employees she does not like, and has hired incompetent friends to management positions. We all dislike her and think that she should be fired, but it seems like everything she does in the store makes us look bad while making her look good, until recently. So, like I said above, part of my job is tracking attendance. Yet, for years, it has been common knowledge that those in my position are expected to fail to upload attendance records to corporate because the company's policies on attendance are extremely harsh, and many employees fail to meet attendance due to factors out of their control. For instance, employees who come in before we open to process our freight often clock in late because the managers on duty take their sweet time opening the front doors for these employees. It is not really their fault that they come in late, and on some occasions, certain employees have been left outside for upwards of 30 minutes after ringing our doorbell because the only person who could open the doors was busy or didn't even hear the doorbell, which is soft. Anyway, if I should upload the attendance record to corporate, many of these employees would probably be fired on the spot by our regional manager through email because these things are automated and mandatory. As a side note, the store manager is one of the managers who likes to take 10 or 15 minutes to open the door for freight employees. We all hate her for this because when it's winter, we have to wait those 10 or 15 minutes outside the door in the freezing cold, and she acts like it's no big deal. Anyway, her district manager friend recently moved to another district, and we got a new DM who's looking to move up in corporate. To do this, she has to make all of our metrics look awesome, including attendance, so she sent an email to our store manager demanding an attendance record. I told the store manager that this could get many employees fired, but instead of realizing the implications, she told me to run the report anyway. I tried to tell her that this could result in most of the employees who had availability before we open, who are very valuable and rare, getting fired, and she completely blew me off. And by the way, guys, if you are a malicious compliance veteran, let me know in the comments what you think happens next. Also, if you enjoyed the malicious compliance, please don't forget to like the video and let me know in the comments what kind of stories you want to hear about. Anyway, she literally went as far as saying that I was not thinking straight, and I told her that she could adjust the attendance on her end, as the DM clearly wanted her to do. This has been common procedure due to the reasons for poor attendance, and she told me that she was the store manager, she would figure it out, and I should just do my job as I was told, and that I'm not paid for thinking about orders, I just need to obey them. So I ran the report and immediately got a furious email from the new district manager saying that I should have run the report by my store manager to adjust the records before uploading it to corporate. The next day, corporate sent an automated email with the names of all the employees that should be fired, which is not an email that our manager can either respond to or contest. She really had to fire all the employees on the email. And as it turned out, every single employee with availability before we opened got fired 15 people. And every other employee in the store is a student with no ability to work before like 10 AM. So yeah, there's nobody to process our freight, which is a massive job. I got an email from a friend in corporate yesterday that said the regional manager was lining up a replacement for our store manager due to incompetence. None of us are surprised. And guys, don't turn off the video just yet. This video is absolutely filled with malicious compliance stories, so let's continue with the next one, which is titled, "Angry Boss Refuses Expense Claim and Tells Me to Read the Policy for Guidance." So I was sent on a week-long mandatory training course through work. I already knew the subject backwards, but my boss wanted me to get the certificate to prove to upper management that his team was 100% certificated. I was told that a train ticket would be booked, as would a hotel, bed and breakfast only, and I would have to pay for lunch and evening meals, but I would be able to claim up to £5 per day for lunch and £11 per day for evening meals. It was a really strange value, but I could easily eat within that limit, and on the last night at the hotel, my food bill was £11.75, 3 pence more than allowed. However, seeing as on the other nights I'd barely spent £10, I chanced that I could talk the finance people into approving it, as the total spend would still be less than allowed for the week. The Monday I returned, I completed the expense form with the receipts and handed it to my boss for approval. An hour later, I was summoned to his office. He flatly refused to sign off on the expenses, as I had apparently overspent. When I tried to explain that it was by 3 pence and that on the Monday night I had actually underspent by £2.50, I was lectured as to the reason that the limits were there and to just read the policy. Well, he sent me back to my desk and told me to resubmit, cue the malicious compliance. I read the policy regarding expenses, and then I read the staff handbook and then my contract. As it turned out, I could claim for the following: reasonable costs for calling my family in the evening, no receipt required, £5 per night for being away from my family, no receipt needed, one-off £30 for being more than 3 hours travel, offered as an incentive. Regardless of time spent on course, it was equivalent to 40 hours, my standard was 37. Also, travel to and from the venue was classed as being in work. That was overtime, as it was out of hours, and double for the Sunday. Friday, as I was late home, was considered an overnight stay. I resubmitted, making the adjustments and highlighting the sections of the policies. Where I had expected around £70 in expenses with the extras in the policies, I claimed for an extra £100 and then filled in the timesheet for the travel overtime, which granted me an additional £150 or so. The boss called me back into the office and tried to tell me that he would not sign off on it, but I referred him to the policies and simply told him that if he refused, I would go above him and maybe submit a formal complaint about him. I did take great satisfaction in reminding him that if he had not have told me to read the policies, then I would have never found out about all these extras, and yes, I did inform every one of my work friends, and yes, I did get all the claimed funds in my next paycheck. The next one is another fantastic malicious compliance story, which is titled "Boss Wants More Words on the Comment for Each Ticket Solved, Engineer Writes a Novel." So I've been working in IT for around 25 to 26 years now, different companies, but you see quite a bit of malicious compliance in the IT world. Back in 2005 to 2006, I worked for a telephone company. A huge one that had the typical Jira-like bug reporting tool for one of its most complicated and convoluted softwares. The software was so complex, so legacy, that even the development team in-house was afraid to do changes in it. Some updates in the past did backfire spectacularly more than once, so even the tiniest update to that software had to take weeks of analysis before then taking place. In that dev team worked 3 of my friends from college. I worked on another one that had an easier life. One of my guys at that team was Badu. Or Bidu, but I would say Badu. To portray Badu accurately, imagine that guy that's always playing innocent pranks that you never know if he's for real when he's talking about. He's always saying the most shocking things just for the lulz. Knows a little bit of magic, uses it to prank, and loves football, soccer as well. He used to be good at his job, but he's also quite a bit tired of it, procrastinating and generally not putting too much effort on it. The fact that he's part of that software dev team doesn't help. It is not a fast-paced environment and people get bored by the inaction. So since he's bored, he plays pranks like connecting a second wireless mouse controller to the PC of a colleague to randomly move the mouse and have him call tech support because his mouse misbehaves, but do absolutely nothing with the mouse when tech support comes. The guy behind the target of the prank ended up calling tech support 4 times before being told what was going on. The team once a week also books a windowless meeting room for an hour, so 3 of them can take a nap while the 4th one guards against someone finding out. Who is the guard rotates each week, and the requests for update Badu gets are almost always something in the style of, "This report indicates that X value is 25 when it should be 27, please fix." Each request typically comes from a different area, but each area sends a couple of requests probably once a month. However, Badu knows that the algorithm doing that calculation is extremely complex, reports are baked on a monthly basis on batch processes that can take hours, and testing this is extremely painful also, so he updates the end value on the report, where it was 25, now is 27, easy peasy, see you next month. He gets probably like 10 to 15 of these requests per day. Bedu updates the bug tool ticket stating on the comment field something like "and value verified and corrected" and moves on. New boss comes to that dev team from another team on the company. He is well known around the company as being quite dense. He instantly clashes with the team. He thinks quantity equals quality and loves to look into numbers. He comes from the database world, so he's constantly using queries to gather information. He also thinks that each ticket solved is because the underlying condition is being solved, and he knows nothing about the complexity of the system. He just thinks that the team is really good at identifying causes and solving them fast. Glorified pencil pusher, if you will. He gathers the team and says that he did a query and found out that the comments being put into the bug tool are really short, like less than 50 characters long, and that is not enough to explain what has been done to solve the incident. The whole team explains that what is being put into the comment field is more than enough. He says that comments should at least have 1000 characters, it's the minimum he will accept. He says that having comments with less than 1000 characters will impact his valuation of the work being done. Bedu, being the devious character he is, decides to complain. Especially since he knows that boss would never open the bug tool, he loves his databases. First ticket comes in, "This value is this, should be that." He updates value, writes the same comment he always does, and value verified and corrected, and then taking advantage of the fact that the comment field has format capabilities, copies and pastes the chronicle from the latest football match into the field, changes the color to white and the font size to 1 so it cannot be seen against the background on the tool, and closes the ticket. If you're the original ticket poster, that comment field is read-only, so unless someone selects and highlights the comment, they won't know that something else is there. Next ticket comes, does the same, but writes a rant about some stupid thing, and then on the next ticket he just keeps pushing random keys and the spacebar until the character counter reaches 1000. He gets bored of doing this, so he becomes more ingenious and inventive by the ticket. Somewhere hidden in that bug tool comment system, a complete original Bedu novel separated in small chapters ends up being written that no one knows about, outside of us few that have lunch with Bedu and the team. Boss comes a month after and says to Bedu, "I've noticed that the size of your comments has gone up last month. You're averaging well over 1000 characters per ticket. Keep it up." Bedu, plus all my other friends and myself, left the company to greener pastures a year later. I still talk daily with Bedu and people from that team. And the next one is another beautiful malicious compliance military-themed story. So here's another story featuring my all-time favorite supervisor from my Navy days. Quick context, in the military basically everything has scheduled preventative maintenance, so equipment stays in good working order. In the Navy, that is handled through a structured program with step-by-step cards that tell you exactly what to do. The instructions are so detailed, it's almost funny, down to specific tools, exact parts and even requirements like what type and length of screwdriver or what kind of gauge you are allowed to use. The system is known as 3M/PMS, Maintenance and Material Management/Plant Maintenance System, and I was an electrician, and that meant anything related to electrical distribution was our responsibility. If another division had equipment but didn't have the electrical training to maintain it properly, we would end up owning those maintenance items too. The culinary specialists, ship cooks, fell into that category, so a lot of their galley gear landed on our plate. One of those pieces of gear was a commercial flat-top griddle. If you've used one, you know it's not a basic 0 to 9 dial like a home stove. You set an actual temperature. Part of its scheduled maintenance was checking calibration every so often. I forget if it was yearly or every couple years, but it was not a constant thing. Early in my time on board, I got assigned that calibration check. I went to pull everything needed, tools, materials, test gear, and immediately hit a problem. We did not have the proper probe for our calibrated temperature instrument. We had the round-tip probe for reading oven and air temps, but not the flat surface probe you're supposed to use on a griddle. I asked another supervisor, not my favorite supervisor, for help locating it, but there was no luck. So we ordered the correct probe and he said he would handle the paperwork to document the situation. Because I was new and didn't fully understand how the system got managed, I didn't think too hard about it when the maintenance item mysteriously vanished from the list the following week, like it had been completed. Yeah, hint hint, fast forward to the next time the calibration check came due, we were deployed and it got assigned to me again. By then I had promoted, I was not the brand new junior electrician anymore, and we also had a new supervisor, the favorite one, in the title. So I checked our calibrated test equipment storage and surprise surprise, still no flat top probe. I brought it up. His response was basically, figure it out. Nope. If I figured it out without the required equipment, the only way to close the maintenance cart would be to lie, what the Navy guy calls gun decking. That can come back hard on the person who signs it, so I refused to do the check without the proper tool. Since he couldn't legally order me to falsify maintenance, we started adding notes that the required probe was in order and kept delaying the job. That went on for a couple months. Then the maintenance item was about to go red, meaning it would fall out of periodicity and start hurting our readiness numbers. That is when I got the classic threat: figure it out or you'll be written up. I refused again and kicked it up to my boss's boss. We tore apart the shop, searched every storage space, checked everything, but still no flat top probe. He basically told me not to stress over it. Later that week, I was on watch as a roving watchstander, and after dinner I walked by the gallery and saw a newer junior electrician, call him EMFA Timmy, working on the griddle. I stepped in and asked what he was doing, and he proudly told me that he was running the calibration maintenance. I asked what probe he was using, and he held up the oven probe, the round one. I explained the problem to him and warned him straight: if he signs off that card using the wrong test gear, it is gun decking, that's official paperwork, that is trouble. I didn't physically stop him because he's an adult and he makes his own choices, but I made sure that he understood the risk. He decided to continue anyway. I walked out quietly, trying not to laugh, and kept doing my rounds. A little later, I went to bed. It was close to 10 PM. About an hour after that, I got shaken awake. Someone told me my supervisor needed me in the gallery immediately. I groaned, assuming this was gonna be about the maintenance cart, and I was about to get that promised write-up. I got dressed and headed down. When I arrived, the entire electrical shop was already there, surrounding the griddle, troubleshooting like it was a casualty drill. So here's what happened. Timmy got to this step where the PMS card tells you to adjust the calibration screw/dial until the thermometer matches the set temperature. When he checked it, the reading was off by something like 150 degrees, so instead of stopping and realizing the measurement method was wrong, he kept cranking the adjustment and increasing the heat. Eventually, he pushed it far enough that the griddle overheated and melted the internal oven temperature safety device, which immediately shut the unit down. In other words, he proved that we needed the proper probe. Now the cooks were dead in the water because the griddle was critical equipment and we had no spare parts to fix it on the spot. Because I'd been the one fighting this the whole time, I got pulled in to help come up with a solution. Before anything else, I asked Timmy a simple question: did you finish the cart? Turn it off, reassemble everything and report completion? He admitted that he hadn't completed the final steps, and that was my opening. I turned to my supervisor and said calmly, the maintenance check I explicitly warned against is still in progress, and I was told I must do it or get written up. My answer hasn't changed. I'm refusing to do this maintenance without the required tools. If you want to write me up, do it in the morning during working hours, but right now I'm going back to bed. And I left. The next morning, I did get written up, not for the maintenance issue itself, but for insubordination. My boss's boss stood there watching the whole thing with the biggest satisfied grin I've ever seen. My supervisor was furious, but the reality was obvious. I had been right the entire time. You cannot properly perform that calibration without the correct equipment, and trying to make it work broke the griddle. That write-up is one of the least embarrassing ones I've ever received. I would take it again instantly, just for the satisfaction of holding the line and mentally handing a big "told you so" to a clueless middle manager. Later on, I even found the electric record showing my supervisor got counseled for pushing people to perform maintenance without the proper tools, because I laid out in detail that this probe had been missing for years and he still tried to bully people into closing the card anyway. I absolutely threw him under the bus. And yeah, about 6 months later, we finally got the correct flat top probe. And now let's move on to the next story. It starts like this. So there is always that one person on the HOA board that makes things worse for everyone else, regardless of whether you are on the board or not. I moved to an HOA after divorcing my husband and moving into a single home with my daughter, who I will call Emma, just to keep identities clean. I'll be honest, an HOA was what I really needed. I wanted to have control, but also had some boundaries on what could and could not be done. I'll be honest, my last relationship was not healthy, but my therapist was insistent that boundaries were good to get me into the proper headspace to raise my daughter. Having the HOA board give me clear instructions on my home and how to manage its exterior kind of helped. So in our old neighborhood, Emma would set up a lemonade stand during the summer. It had been a 2-year tradition before the divorce, and after checking through the HOA documents, there was not anything in them that discouraged or prohibited a lemonade stand as well. So after school leading up to her last day of 5th grade, I would let Emma sit out on the driveway with a little table and stool, waiting for someone to purchase the fresh squeezed lemonade she and I had created the night before. Of course, I watched her from our doorway, but I was astounded by how well my daughter handled thirsty mail carriers, package deliverers, and even the scant few high schoolers that were skateboarding around the neighborhood once school let them out. I would be ready with a new pitcher of lemonade if she needed it, but Emma was good at rationing each cup so that the amount she had lasted as long as it could. She decided that a quarter was enough for 1 cup, so I made sure to make a sign for that the next day. To be honest, I thought the stand was a win-win scenario. Not only were people getting drinks for next to nothing, but my daughter was getting to know new people around the neighborhood, including the delivery drivers and the mailman. For the first week of her stand, things were going great. Of course, a wrench was thrown in after that. I'm calling this woman Karen, but I know that not all Karens act like this. This is just a name I'm placing on a person who was impolite and absolutely horrible to me. Not every Karen is like this, but it was the first name that came to my mind when I was writing out this story. So either way, Karen was someone who I knew as a member of the HOA board. It was very clear she had eyes for the first seat on the board as its head, but with her attitude, I did not think she would get it. Apparently, this fueled Karen to try and find things within the community that were against regulations in order for her to be promoted in some way. I had been outside with Emma when Karen pulled up to the curb. At first I thought she was just another customer, but when she stepped out of the car with her face looking as red as a beet, I knew that she was gonna be yelling about something. Karen, is this business licensed? Me, hi Karen, good to see you. What are you talking about? Karen, is this stand a licensed business? Are you allowed to operate on this corner? Me, this is just my daughter's lemonade stand, Karen. There's no other business going on here. Karen, I don't care. If your daughter doesn't have a license, then this stand is illegal. She cannot sell anything on this corner without a license. Emma is standing tall, but I could see how she looked like she was gonna cry from Karen's remarks, so I told her to go back inside. The fact that someone would just come out and attack a young girl's stand is, well, it did not even elevate them in my eyes. I once again explained to Karen that this was not a business, it was just a lemonade stand. It was not even making a profit. It was not making money from the amount of lemons I had squeezed out to make the drink, but at Emma's insistence I had bought close to 5 pounds of lemons. And you bet your ass I squeezed the juice from at least 2 pounds of those to make the pitcher that Emma had been offering to everyone from the mailman to a passing high schooler. The fact that they even gave her money seemed like a perk. I don't think she realized that she was gonna get compensated for what she gave her customers. Apparently, Karen did not care. To her, a business was a business. Karen pulling out her phone, "You're gonna be sorry you ever crossed me." Hello? Yes, I would like to report a public disturbance. If you could come right away, that would be for the best. There were some choice words I wanted to throw at Karen while she was on the phone, but I knew it would not help my case if the calls were recorded or something. So I sat at the corner next to the makeshift stand that Emma had created out of cardboard, a small side table from our living room, and a few well-placed printer papers that indicated what was for sale and for how much. Legit, if you envisioned what a Peanuts lemonade stand looked like, it would probably look more legitimate than what Emma had concocted all on her own. She was the architect, I was just the person that was larger and knew how to properly cut cardboard. Anyway, when I heard sirens approaching, I was ready to fight Karen. There was no need to involve the actual police in all of this. What was she hoping to prove here? That my daughter could not have a little stand on one of the many corners of the HOA? So while my daughter was pressed up against the screen door, I had to explain to the police that what Karen was reporting on was literally just a lemon stand. There was no actual disturbance, nothing that was unheaving the status quo. It was just Emma's stand that she was running to give drinks out to the bikers, runners and delivery drivers that were rampant around the neighborhood. There was not anything illegal about that, was there? Karen was not having it and was literally screeching at me while I was trying to talk to one of the officers. The officers were absolutely amazing. One even went to check on my daughter to make sure she was okay and that she was not scared by Karen's accusations. He even grabbed 2 cups of lemonade for himself and his partner before they headed out. Of course, they did not press any charges or arrest anyone, but they did warn Karen that she was on thin ice here. That comment got me thinking, and I decided that if Karen had tried to ruin my life and my daughter's, I was gonna find a way to show her that I was not going to take what she did lying down. In a stroke of genius, it was Emma that gave me the idea on where to look first. I had finished tucking her into bed, and before I turned out the light, she turned to me and made me pause. Emma: Mom, I'm sorry that my lemonade stand got you in trouble. Me: oh sweetie, it was not your fault, please don't apologize. Karen just seemed to have an idea, and instead of talking about it with Mama, she just decided to do what she wanted to do on her own. Emma: so Karen is the bad guy? Me: I won't say bad guy, but I think she did not understand what you were doing. Emma: oh, kind of like how people don't understand why our house got so big. Me: wait, what? Emma: I was riding bikes with Penny a bit ago and we passed by Karen's house. She had a lot of people doing stuff to the outside, but then there were other people outside her house yelling at her. Me: okay, thank you for telling me, I will take a look into that. So I did, and it turns out that the people that were doing things outside of her house were construction workers making some sort of renovation to Karen's home. The people that were yelling at her were people that were near or on the HOA board who knew that the construction she was doing was not sanctioned by the board and was not allowed. I spoke with a few of Karen's neighbors and they were able to corroborate my findings. Apparently, Karen had wanted to get some renovations done to her home, but didn't want to wait for the HOA to fully approve of what she had wanted. She had gone ahead and hired a construction crew a few weeks before Emma set up her stand and caused that part of the neighborhood more than a few sleepless nights with the construction. With the evidence from the neighbors and my own account with the police documented, I decided to go to the HOA board with my evidence, only naming others who wanted to be included in the investigation. I normally did not attend HOA meetings unless there was something relevant to Emma or I, but this time I was there, standing at a podium, faced with about a dozen people, one of which was Karen. I presented my evidence without fear and took pleasure from watching Karen's expression turn from disgust to horror to fear. Thankfully, she let me finish and didn't interrupt me while I was making my points. I knew it would be harder to make them with a distraction like that, but I would like to think that she was too stunned to speak. The meeting wrapped up quickly after my declaration, and me and the other non-members of the HOA board were sent home. I went to sleep happy that night, knowing that regardless of how my evidence was taken, I at least made sure that Karen knew I was not someone to mess with. The next 3 days were quiet and I let Emma set her stand back up on the corner. I didn't care if Karen came around again, I would be ready to face her if she decided to attack my daughter. Another 3 days passed and I got a bit scared. Was Karen just biding her time? Did she have something planned? At the end of the month I found out what had happened. After I brought Karen's construction up to the HOA board, they held an emergency meeting about Karen's placement on the HOA board as the illegal construction violated what rules were in effect. Karen had apparently tried to play the victim, blaming me for causing such a ruckus. The HOA board was not amused and they effectively relieved Karen of her duties and asked her to leave. The reason I had not heard anything about her was because she had literally been asked to move out of the HOA. And the next one is a brand new petty revenge story that you don't want to miss. It is titled, I did not fight with my neighbor, Mud did. So there was a woman living next to my house. She had a big dog. Every morning she used to let the dog loose near my side of the fence. Slowly, my plants started getting damaged. Soil everywhere, some flowers completely gone. At first I thought maybe street dogs or kids, but one day I saw it clearly. Her dog was digging near my plants while she was standing there on her phone. I told her once very politely, and she said, "Dogs do these things." And I laughed a little. After that, nothing changed. I fixed the plants again, but put a small fence, and still, whenever her dog came out, somehow it ended up damaging my side. She never stopped it. So I stopped saying anything. Instead, I started watering my plants very early in the morning. Extra water. The ground near the fence stayed muddy for hours. After a few days, her dog came again, but this time it slipped in the mud and got fully dirty. She had to clean it, wash the floor, everything. And yes, this happened more than once. After that, she stopped bringing the dog near my side. My plants are fine now. I never said anything again, and she also never laughed again. And yeah guys, thank you for watching. Please check out my playlist on the left for endless stories, and I will see you again tomorrow.